So are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Rohan, can you confirm if this is getting recorded?
It's getting recorded, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let's get started. So guys, tell me, is there any doubt from the topics that we discussed yesterday?
That anomalous expansion of water was not recorded, sir.
Was it not recorded?
What you're teaching wasn't recorded.
Okay. But my voice didn't get recorded. Huh?
No, sir. Even your screen wasn't recorded.
Okay. The anomalous expansion alone, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll explain
After
it
you
again.
explained that ratio in isotropic materials, after that, it
After
just
that,
stopped.
nothing. My voice didn't get recorded.
Yes,
Voice
sir.
and screen didn't get recorded. Okay, that's fine. So I'll just explain it. So this anomalous expansion of water means, see, till this point, till the point where we saw the relation between alpha, beta, and gamma, we studied that every material will expand on heat being supplied to it, right? So the anomalous expansion of water means, with respect to water, what will happen is, when you supply heat, it will not expand alone. It will also get contracted, in the sense, when you supply heat to water between 0 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius, what is that we expect? Are you able to see an increase in temperature or decrease in temperature? So 0 to 4 is obviously an increase in the value of temperature. So heat is being supplied by us to the system. When this is happening, what is expected? It is expansion, right? But what will happen in the case of water is, between 0 to 4 degrees Celsius, there will be compression. Okay. So water will get contracted, means its volume will decrease with temperature between these two values, 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. And beyond 4 degrees Celsius, whatever temperature you supply, the heat that you supply, right, that is going to expand it. That is why when you observe for water, if you try to plot a graph for volume of 1 kilogram of water versus temperature, which is measured in degrees Celsius, you can understand that the volume will decrease first till what point? Till 4 degrees Celsius. After that, it will start increasing. Now comes an important question. See, we know the mass density of a material. Density is equal to mass divided by volume, right? So so one point is clear, that density and volume are inversely proportional. So between 0 to 4 degrees Celsius, volume is decreasing. Means what will happen to the density? When volume is decreasing, what is going to happen to the density?
Density increases.
Increases. So that is why if you try to plot the graph between density, which is measured in kilogram per meter cube, and temperature measured in degrees Celsius, as the volume is decreasing between 0 to 4, density will increase from 0 to 4. After that, it will decrease. Okay. So this is one of the peculiar behaviors of water, and that is what we call it as anomalous expansion of water. Okay. See, where this point is important is, if you remember the concept of specific gravity. Can someone tell me what is the definition of specific gravity, or the other name for it is relative density? What is the definition for it? It is ratio of something. Ratio of
Density of the substance to density of water at 4 degrees Celsius.
Yes. You are using something important. Density, what is in the denominator? Density of water at 4 degrees
4
Celsius.
degrees.
The reason why we use this 4 degrees Celsius is because of this anomalous expansion of water. Because if you observe from the graph, at 4 degrees Celsius, you can observe the density to be maximum. And what is its value? It is 1 into 10 power 3. That is 1000 kilogram per meter cube. That is why we specifically mention this 4 degrees Celsius. Are you able to understand? So that is a point that is mentioned here. And what I told is the practical importance of anomalous expansion of water. This part alone I told, it's self-study. You can just go through it. Okay. So this is all about the thermal expansion of water. Okay. So you remember in the beginning of the chapter, I told you this chapter is broken into 3 parts. What are the 3 parts? One is thermal expansion. The second is measurement of heat, which is also called as calorimetry. And the third part is called as heat transfer. That is the process of conduction, convection, and radiation, right? So till now, what we have completed is the concept of thermal expansion. So that's done. Okay. So we have finished it for solids and liquids. For gases, we will see under a chapter named Kinetic Theory of Gases. That is a 13th chapter. So is there any doubt till whatever we discussed?
No, sir.
Good. So can I proceed with the next part of the chapter?
Yes, sir.
Right? That is the measurement of heat, which is also called calorimetry. So you can ask me what this calorimetry is. If you try to break it into 2 parts, what does calorie mean? Calorie is what actually? You have been hearing it for a long time. What is calorie? It is a CGS unit of something.
Heat, sir.
Heat, sir. CGS unit.
It is a CGS unit of heat. Metry means it's a branch of physics, which is its measurement. So if you're talking about the measurement of heat, then that particular branch of physics is what is called as calorimetry, and the device used to measure heat is called as a calorimeter. So try to understand, meter is a device, metry is a branch. Are you able to understand this point?
Yes, sir.
Right? So that's what we are going to see. So I just want to confirm one thing. I hope everybody has learned thermodynamics in school, right? Have they started in school?
Only in chemistry they started, sir. Not in physics.
No, I'm asking about chemistry only.
Sir.
Chemistry in school they have started, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then you should be knowing all the terms that are going to be used here. Okay, so you're able to see calorimetry here. So before we start calorimetry, we need to understand certain terms. And the first basic terminology that we are going to concentrate upon is called as specific heat. Okay, you guys know what is specific heat? I'm sure you would have heard this word. Specific heat also has another name called as specific heat capacity. Tell me, have you heard this word or not?
Yes.
So can someone tell me what is the meaning of this? Suppose you take 1 kilogram of a substance. Okay. If you take 1 kilogram of a substance, let's say it is at T degrees Celsius. Okay. When you start supplying heat to it, what is going to happen? Obviously, its temperature is going to increase, right? So how much is the mass of the substance that we have considered? We have taken 1 kilogram of a substance. So to a 1 kilogram of substance, if you start supplying heat with the intention of raising its temperature from T degrees Celsius to T plus 1 degree Celsius. So what is the increase in temperature that you have created? The increase in temperature that we have created is 1 unit. Are you able to understand, guys?
Yes, sir.
So the amount of heat that you have supplied to a unit mass of a substance to raise its temperature by unit value is what is called as specific heat, or it is also called as specific heat capacity. Is that clear? So every object has a specific heat capacity associated with it. So the definition goes like this. The specific heat of a substance may be defined as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of unit mass of the substance through 1 degree. I'm not talking about degree Celsius or degree Kelvin. I'm not talking about degree Celsius or Kelvin. Through 1 degree. 1 degree is some unit of temperature. Okay. It depends on what? It depends on the nature of the substance and its temperature. Guys, are you able to understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So please make a note of it. So if you're clear with this, I'll proceed with the next point. So the next point is, what is going to be the mathematical definition of it? Try to understand. Specific heat is also called as specific heat capacity. Both mean the same. Okay. You can either call specific heat or specific heat capacity. It means the same. So how is it defined as? It is defined as the amount of heat required. Okay, I will write it as delta Q. The amount of heat required to raise the temperature of unit mass of a substance by unit degree. Okay. Delta Q by M into delta T is what is the mathematical definition of specific heat. From this, you can say delta Q is equal to M into C into delta T. Okay. Now, what is going to be its SI unit? It will be joule per kilogram into Kelvin. Right. What will be its CJ's unit? Calorie per gram per degree Celsius. So what we can do is you can write it as joule per kilogram, or you can write it as joule kilogram inverse, joule Kelvin inverse per kilogram. This can be written as calorie degree Celsius inverse per gram. Guys, is this point clear?
Clear, sir.
So make a note of it. So shall I move on to the next concept?
Yes, sir.
So the next concept is called as thermal capacity or heat capacity. Okay. So this is a very confusing factor. Observe. The previous one I told you as specific heat capacity. Here I'm calling it as heat capacity. Okay. So do you think they are the same or different? You can tell me, sir, we have already discussed about specific heat capacity. Why are we discussing about heat capacity? Do you think they both are same? Do you think they both are same, guys?
Yes, sir.
The answer is no. Specific heat capacity is not the same as heat capacity. Okay. And the difference comes here. Try to concentrate. So when I speak about specific heat capacity, what is the mass of the substance I'm taking into consideration? I'm taking 1 kilogram. Whereas if I have to speak about heat capacity, then it is defined like this. It is amount of heat, write it down, required to raise the temperature of any mass of substance by 1 degree. So what is the difference? There it was unit mass. Here it is any mass. Okay. So when you try to write the mathematical expression for heat capacity, it will be going like this. It is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of any mass of substance. So that will not come. Delta Q by delta T is what is called as heat capacity. So are you able to understand the minor difference between them? So when you're writing the mathematical expression for specific heat capacity, you have mass. Whereas when you write the expression for heat capacity, you don't have mass. Delta Q by delta T is what is heat capacity. The other name for heat capacity is thermal capacity. Okay. Is that clear, guys? So can someone tell me what
Yes.
is going to be the SI unit? Joule per
Joule
Kelvin.
per Kelvin.
CGS unit?
Calorie per degree Celsius.
Very good. Calorie per degree Celsius. Or you can write as Joule Kelvin inverse or calorie degree Celsius inverse. Clear? Now, what is the relation between specific heat capacity? That is the relation between specific heat capacity and heat capacity. So C is equal to Q divided by M into delta T or delta Q. Heat capacity is equal to delta Q divided by delta T. You divide both. C divided by heat capacity is equal to 1 divided by M. So which implies heat capacity is equal to mass into specific heat capacity. Guys, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are all the basic terms that we have discussed. Okay. Heat capacity or thermal heat capacity. See, generally, whenever we speak about specific heat, no, you can speak about specific heat in terms of mass or in terms of moles also. Okay. In terms of moles, we mainly are going to see for gases that we will see in the next chapter. In this chapter, we need not worry about it. So if you're seeing the specific heat capacity with respect to mass, you will simply call it as specific heat capacity. Whereas if you're seeing with respect to moles, we call it as molar specific heat. As I told you, we'll see it in the next chapter. So in this chapter, what I want you to remember is delta Q is equal to M into C into delta T. Don't worry about molar specific heat. Okay. Now, the last concept that you need to know before we start calorimetry is what is meant by mass equivalent. Okay. Sorry, not mass equivalent, it is water equivalent. So what does water equivalent mean? It is defined as the mass of the water which requires the same amount of heat as required by a given body for the rise of same temperature, for the same rise of temperature. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, suppose I have wood in my hand. Okay. And I have water in my hand of the same quantity. So I'm supplying heat here. I'm supplying heat here. Let's say this is at T degrees Celsius. This is also at T degrees Celsius. Okay. So I want to raise the temperature of wood from T degrees Celsius to T plus 2 degrees Celsius and water also from T plus 2 degrees Celsius. Guys, are you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what does the definition say? Water equivalent is what? it is defined as the mass of water which requires the same amount of heat as is required by a given body for the same rise of temperature. Now concentrate. No, there's a very tricky part. See, let's say I'm supplying Q amount of heat. Okay, let's say I'm supplying Q amount of heat to m grams of wood to raise the temperature from T to T degrees Celsius. Do you think for this kind of a change to take place, that is for the wood's temperature to get raised from T to T plus 2 and water's temperature to be raised from T to T plus 2, do you think you need to supply the same amount of heat? If I take the same mass of water here, okay, if I take the same mass of water M here, do you think if I supply the same amount of heat here, do you think water's temperature will get raised by the same 2 degrees Celsius?
No, sir.
Why?
One is solid and the other is liquid.
Liquid. That is one of the ways to think. And if you think in a practical way, right, is it easy for you to burn a wood?
No, sir.
No, right? It takes more amount of time, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, since they both are of different materials, you cannot speak about the same amount of heat being supplied. But rather what I'm going to say is, let's say I'm going to have the same amount of heat only. Okay, I'm going to supply the same amount of heat only. But what changes I can do is, maybe if I'm choosing m grams of wood here, maybe I need to choose m dash grams of water, where this change is possible, because lesser quantity you take, you can make the change faster. Does this make sense? Are you able to understand? So if I take lesser quantity of water, okay, I'm not taking the same amount of water as that of wood, but I'm taking a lesser quantity such that the same change in temperature is happening for the same amount of heat being supplied. That value of m dash that you have considered is what is called as water equivalent. Now try to relate and read the definition again. You'll understand. So water equivalent means what? Water equivalent. Equivalent means it is equal to something. What is it equal to? So it is defined as the mass of water, okay, that is m dash, which requires the same heat as is required by the given body. Okay, the given body is wood here, whose mass is m. So here mass of water is m dash. That m dash is what is called as water equivalent. Have that in mind. So it is defined as the mass of water, that is m dash, which requires the same amount of heat q as required by whom? In our example, wood of mass m, for the same rise of temperature. How much was the rise of temperature we took into consideration? It is 2 degrees Celsius. Guys, are you able to understand this? Then the water equivalent is defined as mass multiplied with the specific heat of that substance. Okay. Guys, is this clear or is there any confusion?
Clear, sir.
Clear, right? Okay. Now I'll proceed to the main part, that is calorimetry. Okay. So as we already discussed, calorimetry is a branch of physics that deals with what? That deals with the measurement of heat. Okay. And this branch has a very important principle associated with it. That's called as principle of calorimetry, or the other name given for it is law of mixtures. So principle of calorimetry is the same as the law of mixtures. So what this talks about is, suppose, okay, let's take an example. When I say law of mixtures, let's say you have warm water in your hand. Okay, let's say you have warm water and you're dropping some ice cubes. What will start happening is, you have little warm water and you're dropping ice cubes into it. What do you think will happen? Sorry?
Ice cubes start melting, sir.
ice cubes start melting. Now comes another important question. The ice cube, let's say it is getting completely melted. See, suppose you would have observed this, no? Whenever you drink, let's say I'm again going back to the example of Coke only. Okay, when you go to a shop or a restaurant, you drink Coke, they drop some ice cubes and give you, right? In some restaurants, they do it. Have you ever observed after the ice has melted, after some time, you can find small pieces of ice still existing without melting? Have you ever observed this? You can find very small, right? Sometimes what will happen when you drink, you can actually feel like you're biting ice. Does that happen? So as you told, ice has actually started melting. But why is that small piece remaining? Why didn't it get completely melted and get dissolved in water? Right? So that's what we are trying to understand. Now comes, so I have some questions in mind. Here, I took warm water. I don't know what is the temperature of it. I've taken some ice. I don't know what quantity of ice I've taken. But I'm only trying to analyze what is going to be the physics that is going to happen in this process. Okay. So you told ice will melt. I have a question. Ice is a solid, right? So for the solid to get converted, so when I say melting, the solid is getting converted to liquid. Now comes an important question. So for the solid to get converted to liquid, who is supplying the heat? Or I can say who's supplying the energy?
The liquid, sir.
The warm water, right? So we know one important point. Heat flows from where to where?
Higher temperature to lower temperature.
Higher temperature to lower temperature. Here what has happened is, I have a mixture. Can I call it as a mixture? See, mixture need not be like everything gets dissolved. This is also a mixture. I'm using two different substances combined together, right? So when I use a mixture of warm water and ice, I'm able to observe the principle that heat is getting supplied by the warm water to the ice, as a part of which the heat that is being supplied by the water, the warm water, is actually helping to break the bonds present in the ice. Can we think in those forms? Right. When it is breaking, it is getting converted to liquid. Because in solids, what is happening? The bond is strong. Whereas in liquids, the bond is weaker. So the bond is being broken and it is getting converted to liquid. Now comes another point. Till what time is this going to happen? Till what time will the heat have the feasibility to flow from higher temperature to lower temperature? Right. See, tell me, when the warm water, let's say it is at T degrees Celsius and ice is at small t degrees Celsius, okay? As the warm water is supplying heat to the ice, what do you think will be the temperature of ice? Is it still going to be 0 degrees Celsius?
It will increase, sir.
It should increase. See, actually, what concept I'm saying is a different thing, because remember, this ice melts at 0 degrees Celsius, means temperature will actually not change. But here assume, see, just for the sake of example, I'm telling you, don't take it as a wrong concept. Assume that the temperature of ice is increasing, okay? So assume temperature of ice is increasing from the T degrees Celsius to T plus delta T. Then what do you think will happen to the temperature of warm water? Is it still going to be the same?
No, sir.
It will dash.
Red.
Is it not?
Yes.
What will happen? Complete that. Fill that blank. The temperature of warm water will dash. Fill in the blank. Is it going to decrease or increase?
Decrease.
Decrease.
It is going to decrease. So what is happening here is, the cold object, whichever has come in contact with the hotter object, so the colder object is tending to increase its temperature and the hotter object is tending to decrease its temperature, because it is releasing heat. Releasing heat means temperature decreases, right? And the vice versa happens with respect to the colder object. So this kind of a process will take place till what time? Till the temperature of the hotter object and the colder object is going to be
Equal.
again a dash. Yes, till it is going to be equal, because when it becomes equal, there is a condition of equilibrium that is attained. It is thermal equilibrium. Because what did I say? I told you heat flows from higher temperature to lower temperature. When the temperature of both the objects is the same, there is no feasibility of heat to flow. Right? So when that is going to happen, the process will stop. Right? That is what is called as principle of calorimetry. Right? So when two objects at different temperatures are placed in contact with one another. So here, what is important point? The object should be at different temperatures. Heat will flow from the body at higher temperature to an object at lower temperature till both the objects acquire the same temperature. Okay, when both the objects acquire the same temperature, that point is called as thermal what? Thermal equilibrium.
Equilibrium.
That's called as thermal equilibrium. From this comes the statement of principle of calorimetry, right? So the principle of calorimetry states that the amount of heat gained by whom? Who is gaining the heat? Whose temperature is increasing? It's the cold object. The amount of heat gained by the cold object must be equal to the amount of heat lost by the hot object, provided no heat is escaping to the surroundings. Provided there is no exchange of heat with the surroundings. Means the hotter object is not taking any extra heat from the surrounding, nor it is releasing its heat to the surrounding. So the hotter object is releasing its energy only to colder object. That should happen. Means it should be an isolated system. To be more specific, if you know this term, under adiabatic conditions, means if there is no exchange of heat taking place with the surroundings. If you have heard this word, it is fine. If not, don't worry. Okay, so adiabatic condition means no exchange of heat will take place with the surroundings. Guys, is my point clear? Because this is the concept based on which we are going to solve problems. So heat gained by the colder object is equal to the heat lost by the hotter object, provided there is no exchange of heat with the surroundings. Okay, so this principle can be told as the consequence of the law of conservation of energy, and it is mostly used for solving the problems in calorimetry. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
So please make a note of it. I don't think I've shared this sheet with you guys. I'll do it again. So if you're clear with this, I'll proceed to the next concept.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, sir. So what are the two important forms of heat that we have spoken about till now? One is specific heat capacity and the second is heat capacity, right? So these are the two important terms that we have seen. So tell me one thing, guys. In the case of specific heat capacity and heat capacity, is the temperature of the object increasing or not? In the case of specific heat capacity and heat capacity, is the temperature of the object increasing or not?
It increases, sir.
It increases. That is why in the formula we use delta T in the denominator, right? Right? So,
Yes.
right. Now comes another important question. What if I want the object to change its state from one form to another? When I say change its state, it has to get converted from solid to liquid or liquid to solid or liquid to vapor or vapor to liquid. So this is what is called as change of state. In gaseous state, you would have learned as change of phase. They both mean the same. So if I want to read about the concept of change of state, how exactly is the temperature going to play an important role here? Okay. So listen to this carefully. Okay. Matter exists in three states, that is in the form of solid, liquid, and gas. So any state of a substance, that is a phase, can be changed from one form to another, either by heating it or cooling it. So the change of substance, the transition of substance from one state to another is called as change of state. So what are all the common states that we know? You can think of melting of a solid. If I use the word melting of solid, what will you say? That is, you have a solid. When you supply heat, it will get converted to liquid. So what is the reverse point of it? When something is
Freezing.
melting, the reverse point is called as freezing, or sometimes we call it as fusion. Fusion means something coming together. When a liquid is, when the heat is extracted from a liquid, it gets converted to solid. Because compared to solid and liquid, liquid is going to have more energy because it is loosely bound. The particles are loosely bound. Are you guys able to understand this? So melting and freezing has something to do with the forms of conversion from solid to liquid or liquid to solid. So what is the other conversion that is possible? Liquid to vapor and vapor to liquid, right? So when liquid is supplied with some heat, it gets converted to vapor, and the process is called as vaporization, or we can call it as evaporation, right? But more specifically, we call it as vaporization. Then what about condensation? Condensation is the reverse process. That is, vapor, when heat is extracted out of vapor, it gets converted to liquid. Guys, are you able to understand? Though this is what is called as change of state. So here, what is the important point I'm using? I'm talking about heat being supplied or heat being extracted. When I say heat, it is heated. When I say cool, it is like heat is extracted. Correct? Now, tell me, if you take ice, okay, water will become ice at what temperature? I'm talking about water.
0 degrees Celsius.
0.
It becomes 0 degrees Celsius. Ice will get converted to water at what temperature?
0 degree.
At the same 0 degrees Celsius. So here, try to understand. I never told when ice starts melting. Okay. So ice means if you have a solid cube of ice which is made up of water, and that solid is at 0 degrees Celsius, it will get converted to water also at the same temperature. Means if its state is changing, it is still going to have 0 degrees Celsius. Now, I have a question. If ice has to get converted to water, do we need to supply heat or extract heat?
Supply heat.
Okay. So when you supply heat to an object, till now we were discussing, stating that heat is supplied, temperature will increase, right? So that's what we understood. Till now, that is what I'd been discussing. I told whenever heat is supplied, temperature will rise. But here, the heat you supply is able to convert the ice to, that is a solid to a liquid form at the same temperature. How is it possible? Right? Isn't this an important question we need to raise? How can you say ice is melting at 0 degrees Celsius? Why doesn't the temperature rise? At least it can be 0.001 degrees Celsius, something of that sort. No? You're using the statement ice melts exactly at 0 degrees Celsius. How? What do you think is happening? Can someone tell me?
It's related to force of attraction of particles, sir.
Something like that only. You're almost there, but if you can give a more specific definition, I'll be happy.
The heat is used to break bonds in solid.
Okay. Is it all? So whatever you told is a perfect answer. The heat that you're supplying is not, see, heat supplied can be used for anything. The energy that you supply can be used for anything. In this case, what is happening, the case of change of phase, the heat you supply is only used to break the bonds. It is not going to increase the temperature of the substance. Then, if it is only used to break the bond without increasing the temperature of substance, then what do I call this heat as? Since till now, whatever I studied, heat is used to raise the temperature of object. Then what do I call this kind of heat as? I told you the first letter. Can you guess what it is?
Latent heat.
Latent.
Yes. So the heat that is actually used only to break the bonds without raising the temperature of substance is called as latent heat. Latent means hidden. Latent means hidden heat. Are you guys able to understand how to think? So till now, whatever we discussed was about latent heat. So when do you use the concept of latent heat? Do you use it when the temperature has to be increased, or only in the case of change of phase? You'll use it only in the case of change of phase, because if temperature is increasing, then heat capacity and specific heat capacity is used, right? Now we need to understand what exactly does latent heat mean. Can someone define it? It is defined as what? It is defined as the amount of heat required to, what is it actually doing? Now, don't use the word of breaking of bonds, because in physics we are not concerned about that word. You can use it in chemistry. So amount of heat required to change what? Change the state of, here the important word is unit mass of a substance at a given temperature. Okay. So latent heat is generally represented by the symbol L. L will be equal to delta Q divided by M. So here what is missing compared to the other two formulae? There it was delta T that was existing. Here there is no delta T. Delta T is not defined at all here. It is only delta Q divided by M. So delta Q will be equal to M into L. What will be the SI unit, guys? Joule per kilogram. And what will be the CJ's unit? Gram, sorry.
Calorie per
Yes, it is calorie per gram.
gram.
So this is what is the mathematical definition of latent heat. So with all these concepts that we have discussed till now, we are going to solve the problems. Okay. So with this, actually the content is over. The theory part is over. We need to solve few problems to understand that. Okay. So please make a note of this point. If you're done writing, I will do a problem and show. Shall I start?
Could you show the definition for latent heat for a minute?
Sure. Done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now see. See, there is a graph given here, right? This one I will explain it as a problem itself. I hope you're able to hear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So listen. So when I forgot a small point. So when I talk about latent heat, there are two types of latent heat, because there are two types of conversions that are taking place. One is solid to liquid and liquid to vapor. So the two types of latent heats that are used are latent heat of fusion and latent heat of vaporization. Latent heat of fusion is represented as LF, and latent heat of vaporization is represented as L with a suffix V. Okay. So what do you think is latent heat of fusion? The amount of heat required to change the mass of a substance from solid to liquid. Here I'm not using at 0 degrees Celsius. I'm using at its melting point, because different objects will have different melting points. Okay. The amount of heat required to change the state of unit mass of a substance from where to where? From solid to liquid at its melting point is called latent heat of fusion, or it is also called as latent heat of melting. So fusion is a process of freezing and melting is a process of Melting is obviously conversion from solid to liquid. Is that clear, guys? Similarly, latent heat of vaporization means the amount of heat required to change the state of unit mass of the substance from liquid to vapor at its boiling point. It's called latent heat of vaporization, or we also call it as latent heat of boiling. We don't call it as latent heat of condensation at all. Okay. Is this clear, guys? Now see, there are certain values that are given here. Okay, anyways, you need not memorize those values. Rather, we need to understand how to use them. Okay, so I'll do a problem and show. Listen, the 17th one is a good problem. See, when 0.15 kilogram of ice at 0 degrees Celsius is mixed with 0.3 kilograms of water at 50 degrees Celsius. It is like the same example. Ice and water, here it is not warm water, rather it is hot water. Okay. In a container, the resulting temperature is 6.7 degrees Celsius. What is the meaning of resulting temperature being 6.7? At that point, the exchange of heat will stop. Okay. If that is the case, we need to calculate the heat of fusion of ice, and the specific heat of water is given as 4186 joule per kilogram per Kelvin. Okay. I'll tell you how to think. So you have ice at what temperature? 0 degrees Celsius. And water at 50 degrees Celsius. And the resulting temperature, whatever it is, it's a mixture of ice plus water, and its temperature is 6.7 degrees Celsius. So who has lost the heat? Water. And who has gained the heat? It is ice. I hope you're able to hear me, right? Unlike yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now see. So first tell me one thing. When ice at 0 degrees Celsius, ice is in solid form. When ice is there at 0 degrees Celsius, when it is going in contact with water at 50 degrees Celsius, what do you think will be the heat supplied by water due to the ice? Will it directly start increasing the temperature of ice, or is there any intermediate step?
First convert it into solid liquid.
Liquid. So some amount of heat that is supplied by water will be utilized to convert it to liquid, and that will happen at what point? At what temperature with respect to ice? At 0 degrees Celsius, because the melting point of water is, the melting point of ice is 0 degrees Celsius. So according to the principle of calorimetry, can I say heat lost by water is utilized for two things? One is melting of ice at 0 degrees Celsius and converting melted ice from 0 degrees Celsius to 6.7 degrees Celsius. Guys, are you able to understand this? There
Yes,
are two
sir.
processes happening. Now tell me, what is the heat loss by water? So for heat loss by water, see, heat loss means temperature is changing. M into specific heat, mass of water into specific heat of water into delta T of water is equal to For melting of ice at 0 degrees Celsius, what is the heat formula I need to use? I need to use M into LF plus converting of melted ice from 0 to 6.7 degrees Celsius is mass of ice into specific heat of water into delta T of water. Delta T of, I can say, rather I can call it as ice water. Okay. So that's the mathematical expression. Is everyone clear with this? This is what you need to understand. Are you clear with this?
The
Is there
LF is latent heat of fusion, sir.
fusion? Yes. Latent heat of fusion or latent heat of melting means the same. And in this question, that is what they're asking us to find.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So what is the mass of water that is present? It is 0.3 kilogram into specific heat of water is 4186 into change in temperature of water is 50 minus 6.7. Here, if you observe one point, specific heat of water is given in terms of SI unit, means it should be in terms of Kelvin. But temperature is given in terms of degree Celsius. If you observe, I never converted it to Kelvin. Why? Because to convert degree Celsius to Kelvin, I'll add 273. So if I add 273 to this and 273 to 6.7 and subtract, the 273 will get cancelled. Okay. So whenever you talk about change in temperature, whether it is degree Celsius or Kelvin, it doesn't make any difference. Is equal to, here what should I take? Mass of ice. What is the mass of ice? It is 0.15 into latent heat of fusion plus mass of ice is again 0.15 into, now the ice has got converted to water. So the specific heat of water is 4816 into, what is the change in temperature of ice, guys? The final temperature of ice is 6.7 minus initial temperature is 0. Are you able to understand this point?
Yes, sir.
So 0.15, 0.15 will cancel it 2 times. So 2 into 4186 into 50 minus 6.7 is how much? 50 minus 7 is 43. To 43, I need to add 0.3. So 43.3 is equal to latent heat of fusion into, plus. So one unknown, one equation, solve for it, you will get the answer. So are you guys clear with how to apply the principle of calorimetry?
I have a doubt, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
For water, we did 50 minus 6.7, sir. But for ice, it is 6.7 minus 0, sir. Right?
Because, see, what is delta T? It's a good question. It is final minus initial, right? Water initially was at 50 degrees Celsius. Finally, it was at, oh, sorry.
6.7.
Yeah,
It
I'm
should
sorry.
be negative,
Here,
right, sir?
no. I didn't use the formula here because I'm sorry. When I say change in temperature, in statement itself, I have told heat lost by water. Lost itself means minus. I didn't take the minus sign into consideration here because the change in temperature is 50 minus 6.7.
So if you use a negative sign, it will become like this.
You need not use negative sign because you have mentioned it in the statement itself. 50 minus 6.7 is telling you it has already lost. If you do 6.7 minus 50, you're going to get a negative value only, no?
Yes, sir.
So you can say, if you want me to take it like, if you want me to write it in the form of formula, I can write it as lost means minus 0.3 into 4186. Delta T is 6.7 minus 50. This will give you negative. Negative multiplied with negative will give you this value only.
Understood, sir.
Okay. So that's, yeah, good observation. So 50 minus 6.7 is 43.3. Here it is 6.7. Now you understood now why I wrote 6.7 minus 0 here, because it is the heat gained by it. So the value part you can calculate. Okay, that part I'm leaving it to you. So with this chapter is actually over, but in tomorrow's class, I will do some more examples. Then we will go to thermodynamics. Okay, because I want you to understand calorimetry better. Is there any other doubt, guys?
No, sir.
Just wait for a minute, don't leave.